fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. And for this I have 1971's Bloodstained Butterfly. And of course this is the Arrow Blu-ray, and this is probably the only time I actually kind of struggled with which artwork I was going to keep on the cover. So I don't know how well you can see it, but I love this new Arrow artwork. Not so much that, but I am a sucker for the more classic and original covers, so I switched it. So it came out in 1971, I think I said. Yep. And it was directed by Duccio Cesare. This was his second Giallo, after Death Occurred Last Night, and before his third, Puzzle, which I've also reviewed. And which is interesting because I had forgotten he directed Puzzle. So as I'm watching it, I'm kind of thinking of because this is one of those, I don't really want to say novelty Giallo, but it kind of is, where it really flips the Giallo formula on its head and does something really different and interesting with it, like Puzzle did. I was thinking, this kind of reminds me of Puzzle. It's by the same director. And it was written by Cesare and Gianfranco Clerici, and it stars Helmut Berger, or Berger, Austrian. So yeah, I'm gonna, because I have a friend with the same last name that lives in Netherlands. So Helmut Berger. Giancarlo Sbragia, Evelyn Stewart, which she's credited as Ida Gali, but real name is Evelyn Stewart. She's been in a lot of films. She was in Whip in the Body, Sweet Body of Deborah, which I still need to get, Weekend Murders, which I still need to get, Case of Scorpion's Tail, this, Knife of Ice, which I still need to get, Footprints on the Moon, which I still need to get, The Psychic, which I have reviewed, and I'm pretty sure she was, no, I kept thinking she was the rich wife in a New York Ripper, but no. Lorella DeLuca, and music was by Gianni Ferrio, which this did have a very interesting score. And the cinematography was by Carlo Carlini, who's worked with everyone from Antonio Margheriti to Fellini himself. Now, in the music, one of the key pieces is Tchaikovsky's First Piano Concerto, which I'm sure many people have heard. The most notable instance I can think of would be during Misery, the montage of Paul writing the new novel. That plays during the opening credits and throughout the film. And the score is this sort of jazzy piano score that blends that piece into it. Also because Berger's character is a concert piano player. So the novelty of this Giallo is that it's a courtroom setting. It's mostly a courtroom setting, where, like in the beginning of the film, well actually, it opens up, it gives us the characters, it gives us this roll call of characters with their title of a relationship. Like we see, the first one it shows us is Sarah Marchi, who's played by Wendy Dollive. And then it will show Alessandro Marchi, it'll say Sarah's father. Then it shows, I actually wrote it all down because I wasn't sure how many there were going to be. So yeah, Alessandro, father, Maria, mother, and then Giulio says their lawyer, but there's actually a typo because it puts Theyr, which even that's spelt wrong, but that's the they are, not Their. And then it shows Giorgio, and then it shows Araprondo, Giorgio's father, and Diamante, Giorgio's mother. So it gives us this roll call of characters. And I guess in the Spanish version of this, that was cut out. And a lot of people were actually, it actually got like worse reviews, and people didn't really like it as much. And I think people were more confused about who was who. I thought it really helped. It was having that nice roll call, because then right after that, we get the main death of the film, or at least the first one, and we don't see how it happens. It's just a park, these two girls playing hide and seek, there's a hill, 17-year-old girl rolls down it and she's dead, and then the killer runs off. Several witnesses, but then most of the film takes place, or at least for the first hour, takes place in a courtroom, and we see through flashbacks, and there's even flashbacks within flashbacks that show us what happened. And the thing about this novelty, and it was kind of like with Puzzle, with the amnesia aspect of that movie, with this, it's like we're sitting with the jury. And so we're hearing about the case and we're learning about it as they are. I thought that was very interesting. I thought that was a very great idea. But also when the inspectors, like Berardi and his guys, are discussing and theorizing what happened to the victims, we get the flashbacks of what really happened with their voiceover of what happened or what they theorize. So, and it does feel like an early courtroom procedural movie or show, like Law and Order. So, and there's a lot of scenes where, they present the evidence, and then Alessandro's lawyer debunks the evidence, and it all sounds, which at the end it thanked this one police and science department. So like, I wonder if they had help with like a lot of the authenticity of it. No real production notes. I should have read the book in this. But Alessandro is a a TV personality who I think he does like sports shows. And they first want him because as the killer's running away, which I noticed the killer isn't wearing gloves. It looks like he leans down and kisses the 17-year-old girl, not wearing gloves. But then when he runs away, he's wearing brown leather gloves. Of the several people that see him fleeing, there's this couple in a car, they're making out. And as the killer stops, even though his back is turned, the woman of the couple, looks out the window and sees him. Eventually, she goes to the police and says, I recognized him as Alessandro Marchi, which apparently Marchi or Marchi means rotten in Italian. So they go to his house. They notice one of his raincoats, or one of his coats, which, one part about the coats I kind of didn't really get, because it talked about this stain on the victim's white raincoat being like a light blue, which kind of comes from this sort of seat cover. So they find a blue coat, but then his wife, Maria, says, I had to send his gray raincoat to the cleaners because it was covered in mud. So then they arrest him. And all the damning evidence is, of course, the seat cover, which was in his car. It was his knife. she was stabbed 5 times. It was his knife. His prints were on it. And when they showed the prints of the knife, I thought this was gonna lead into it more, but it kind of didn't. There's like a cut on one side of the finger, which the one they lifted from the knife, and then his fingerprints, it didn't quite line up. Didn't really go anywhere, but that's part of it. And also, he didn't give an alibi. And I did take notes of everything that they were going over. Oh yeah, the seat cover that left a sort of stain or residue. Knife being his. Gabriella's sighting. And while this is going on, his daughter Sarah and this guy Giorgio, they meet and they start dating. But he's a childhood crush of her, so they start dating. And Giulio is the lawyer that the Marquis hire. And, he points out that, or he has Alessandro testify that his car was stolen just prior. He lost the knife, which he admitted was his, gloves, hat, lost a few things. The seat cover is actually a very popular seat cover. Thousands of people in Italy use the same one. Also, Gabriella wears glasses. He had her wipe makeup off. And then it showed us this, with flashback, showed us this experiment, which they fogged up her mirror. And I love police procedural stuff. I think it's really cool, especially when they reconstruct crime scenes. Or not crime scenes, but things to help the crime scene. So they fog up her window, and then they have all these inspectors and Alessandro up where she saw him on the hill, and they would keep switching off the hat and the glasses so she can say, okay, that one is him, that one isn't. And in the courtroom, Giulio says she claimed to have seen him 3 times out of all of them, and incorrectly saw him 4 times. So her eyesight is not very credulous. Then he finally gives his alibi. Then there's this scene where Sarah's talking about how much she loves Giorgio. And he seems very despondent. Oh, and Francois was the dead girl's name. She was good friends with Sarah. She talks about how she was, Francois was in love with this guy, but Sarah, had never met him. And Giorgio just seems very despondent, not barely listening. And he just walks over, he puts on a record, which is the Tchaikovsky piece. And it's like he sits on the bed, and it's like as the movie goes on, it becomes more unhinged. And the thing about he's the obvious, he's the character that they try to make out to be the obvious red herring, which there are a couple. But this movie really does have 2 very different halves. I mean, there's the courtroom half, and then there's the aftermath and when the killings continue. Which, that's when the multiple red herrings come out. Oh, I didn't even mention the opening credits with the Tchaikovsky piece. It's all black, and there's like a butterfly, this shaped butterfly cut out, where we sort of just see around the city of Milan and this woman driving around. Then she goes home. So that's when he finally decides to say his alibi, which was on Friday, April 26th, the day that girl was killed. A woman from a garment store says, oh yeah, he came into my store, he bought some black lingerie. They asked him if it was for his wife. He said no. They're like, well, who was it for? And that's when he finally says, okay, I have a mistress, and Fridays are the days I go to see her. So that's where I was on the day of the murder. And we see it was the woman from the very beginning who went home and started drinking. He said she had drank a little too much. She fell, broke a glass, got stuck in her hand. And that's when his wife Maria speaks up and says, is that why there's blood on your shirt? So then they go to get her that shirt that she hid, because I guess she also suspected he must have been the killer because she saved and hid that shirt. They tested the blood, Dexter style, with blood slides. Loved that. Saw that it's the same blood type as the dead girl. And then they put him away. We see through a headline that, he was sentenced life. The person that reads it is Giorgio, and as he's walking away reading it, he kind of has a little bit of a smirk. But shortly after, there's more murders. So it couldn't have been him, and inspectors have to chase down and prove that, well, at first they think it's a copycat, but then they realize the killer is going around killing multiple women in the same vein as the first one. Eventually there's a phone call that says, I did all of them. And they realize that Alessandro must go, and they have to find the real killer. So with that, I could get into spoilers, but it's a good novelty Giallo. I mean, I do like the idea of it being put in a courtroom and it all unfolding with flashbacks so that we learn with it as the jury does. There are some great shots. There's a lot of wide shots, tracking shots, like a lot, especially in the courtroom. There's really wide shots that will just kind of pan around the room that look great. One scene of Giorgio at his very awful parents' house, very stuck-up rich people that think he's living beneath himself. This long rich people table with like the vanishing point, and just like this wide shot, and just kind of stays there. It has some great cinematography as well. The twist I did not see coming. I mean, it hints towards it. It does have some good red herrings, some good twists, but part of the final twist I didn't really see coming. So I definitely do recommend this Giallo, especially if you like ones like puzzle. If you like puzzle, then you'll like this. I also love the final scene, the way the music is and everything. I loved it. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty good movie. I really enjoyed it. I would say the music, I think it blended better artistically, but there wasn't a lot score-wise that kind of stuck in my head. But it blended with the Tchaikovsky piece very well. So with that, you can definitely recommend it, but with that, I'm going to get into spoilers, so. So shortly after Alessandro is sentenced to life, we get all the twists. We see that Giulio and Maria are in bed together. They've been having an affair for quite a while, and now they're actually happy that Alessandro is in jail and they can meet up whenever they want. Both of them believe that he's innocent, but they're like, oh, too bad, but good for us. And even his wife is like, poor Alessandro. I don't really think he did it, but, at least we're together. That's what matters. And then it shows Giulio and Sarah in bed together, and she looks frightened and he looks intense and psychotic. Because like I said, as the movie goes on, he becomes more unhinged, eventually just thrashing and breaking everything in his apartment. But then there's a second murder, and it's of a prostitute. And again, stabbed a bunch of times with a switchblade. Left out in the rainy woods. And I thought it was actually going to be Giulio, because he pulls into a gas station. He walks up to this prostitute with a lighter, to light her cigarette, and with the pack that she just bought. And after she's found, which is right after that scene, it zooms in on all her purse contents that are spilled out, zooms in on the pack of cigarettes. So, of course, Berardi and his guys all think it's like a copycat or just a similar killing. There's also this recurring gag where every time he or someone else, like whenever he's brought coffee, he gives a reason for why it's bad. But every time someone else has a cup of coffee, they say it's good. I'm guessing just a little bit of comedy. And then even Giorgio. I feel like I said Giulio twice. Like, Giulio's in bed with whatever. Giorgio tells Sarah they probably shouldn't see each other anymore. And then he really becomes more unhinged. Then there's a third victim, which is a school teacher. And they keep finding switchblades. And then they decide to bring in the woman of the sporting goods store. And she says, oh yeah, I've sold a few of this model switchblade. And she's able to say that it's that they sold it to Giorgio. So there's which eventually Alessandro is exonerated and set free. There's a lot of tension between him, Maria, Giulio, and Sarah, which there is this great shot when they're all sitting around the dinner table and the camera's just panning around, kind of that 70s show style, but you can just feel the tension. Like, Maria and Giulio are not happy that he's out. He can tell. Sarah knows that they're having an affair as well. But eventually, cops figure out that, Giorgio is the one that's been buying the switchblades. So they go to chase him down. But the final twist is Giorgio and Alessandro, they're in front of each other. And we find out that Alessandro did kill the first girl. I don't think it says why, but he did. He even admits it to him. And Giorgio killed the following two. Oh, and the final reason that gets Alessandro exonerated is because his mistress, who was on a trip and they couldn't talk to her during his initial trial, they asked her about her blood type because of the cut on her hand and the blood on the shirt, and she has the exact same blood type as the dead girl. So everything added up, that's how he got out. But after he admits to Giorgio that he was the killer, we find out that the man Francois was in love with deeply was Giorgio, and he was equally as much in love with her. And so she was taken from him. So that's when he was put away. He still wanted revenge on him, so he killed the other two women in the exact same way to get him freed, which he also made the phone call saying, I killed all three, so that they could help exonerate him. And because he wanted revenge on him. And so Alessandro killed the first one, and then Giorgio killed the following two in the same manner to get him released, so he could kill him. And you get this great final conflict between the two, which has the Tchaikovsky piece, but like the big open part of the Tchaikovsky piece with shots of, Francois either by herself or together with Giorgio, but he's shooting Alessandro. Alessandro managed to stab Giorgio. Again, the way it's done is so great, which that is set up earlier in the film, because as he's listening to Tchaikovsky, he's loading his pistol with bullets. I actually thought he was going to kill himself, but so we had that final. So then Alessandro is dead, and I think Giorgio dies from a stab wound, and the camera just pans out, and then it ends. As far as Butterfly goes, I mean, yeah, we had that cut out in the screen during the opening credits, but he also walks by a shop where in the window there's a butterfly pendant. Other than that, not much. Which the original cover that I would have liked to have this is like that skull with the bloodstained butterfly on it. So yeah, great novelty. I really didn't see the twist being the actually innocent guy from the beginning actually was the killer of the first one, and then the same killer was someone else just trying to fool the cops into thinking they got the wrong guy just so they could release him so he can get revenge on him. And we all see it, like first hour, we see it unfold the same as the jury does. And then it takes place pretty much in real time, moves forward like a regular Giallo for the last half hour. So, pretty solid. Again, some really good, interesting cinematography with the panning shots, whether it's moving around the dinner table or following someone around a room or like a street corner or whatever, or these big, wide open shots that look great. Decent acting. I haven't talked about the acting yet. I will say it was mostly the dubbing, I guess, but Giorgio was kind of a bit intense and over the top, like almost sounded like Ricky from Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. But in any case, still a very solid Giallo. I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it. I have a few more Giallo to get to, and then I'll be wrapping up this marathon that I've been doing for 3 months. If there's still some October left, I'll be doing anthology films and Stephen King films. But there's still plenty of Giallo that I want to get to. At least around a dozen, maybe less. But anyway, so stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.